Here we go again, yet another Ultrabook. This time it's the Toshiba Satellite U840. This one is again box priced at about 53,000 rupees, which means it is competing directly with the Samsung Series 5 and the HP NV4. Now, those two Ultrabooks are till now our best performers in the sub 60,000 price bracket, so this one has a huge task on its hands if it has to compete with the two of them. To start off with, let me just tell you the specs for this one. This has the same processor as the other two, the Intel Core i5-3317U, clocking at 1.7 GHz. This is incidentally the Ivy Bridge processor, the same one as we saw on the other two machines. Intel HD 4000 graphics, 4 gigs of RAM, a 500 GB hard drive, and 32 gigs of flash storage, which has now become a trend with the second generation of Ultrabooks. What it does not have is a dedicated graphics card. Now, the HP NV offers an AMD Radeon card, the Samsung Series 5 is an NVIDIA card. This one just depends on the integrated graphics, the Intel HD 4000. We think this is at a serious disadvantage immediately, but let's just run you through how this looks, how this feels, and then we'll tell you in detail about the performance in the review. As we had mentioned, this one is competing with the HP NV and the Samsung Series 5. Now, those two Ultrabooks actually were quite well built. So this one is actually competing again against some very tough competition. Straight out of the box, we like this very classy, sophisticated brushed metal finish on the top. That carries around here as well, the palm rest area, the area around the keypad. You can see the brushed metal finish here. Somewhat the same finish on the touchpad as well. The power key here, very nicely done. It's one of those little shiny elements that make a difference to an entire package without being too loud. The bezel, however, is a bit of a disappointment. When Toshiba did so well with the overall look and the materials used on this particular Ultrabook, why have this plastic bezel here which looks very cheap? Quite frankly, it has the black glossy finish. We aren't even removing the plastic from this one, the protective cover. That kind of ruins the Ultrabook's looks and kind of gives you the feel that yeah, there are some budget elements to it. That should ideally not be the case because the rest of it looks quite classy and should ideally be more expensive than it is. Having said that, the keyboard, it has a plastic base around it, and the same plastic base carries onto the base. Now, coming back to the keyboard, if you remember, we had said during the review of the Dell XPS 14 that the keyboard seemed a little flat. This one, however, is flatter than that. The key height isn't enough for somebody who's just getting used to this keyboard for the first time. There's very less key travel, there's literally no sound, which is a good thing. But the real difference for this would be the key size. Now, width-wise, this keyboard has keys which are pretty similar to what the rivals offer, but these keys have a shorter height. So, getting your hands and your fingers to get used to this height, the key placement kind of changes a little because of that, will take some time. I can't really understand why this little steep learning curve has been put into this entire experience of shifting from one machine to this. The display has its good things, has its bad things. Quite reflective, as you can probably see me reflecting off this display, but it's natively quite bright, as I'll just give you a demonstration here. However, where it loses out slightly again is in terms of the color reproduction when you really turn up the brightness. The HP NV did the best in that particular scenario, also helped by the fact that it wasn't natively as bright as this, marginally less bright, but it handled colors well at high brightness. This one slightly washes them out. Adequate crispness though, reading text will not be a problem at all. In fact, it's going to be a very comfortable experience. Quite a few ports. There's a USB port on this side, there's an HDMI port here, different 3.5mm for headphone and your microphones. Two USB ports here along with a memory card slot and an Ethernet port.